Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is endure. And this verb was suggested by the viewer Luis. Luis, thank you so much for this suggestion. Now, let's take a moment and review some of the definitions or the ways that we can use this verb. The first one you might encounter is to suffer something painful or difficult patiently or in a patient way. So with this, right, the challenge, that sort of negative thing might be ongoing, but someone is continuing on, right? We might sort of think of this as the opposite of someone giving up or losing hope, right? They're still continuing on. A second related way to use, or you might see this verb endure used, is to mean to last or to remain in existence. So sometimes you might hear two characters in a movie sort of ask this question, like, will our love endure? Will it continue on and last forever? For now, you should know that endure is a regular verb. If you want to make the progressive form of this verb, you're going to drop the E on the end before adding ing. That forms enduring. The past tense and the participle form of our verb can be made by just adding the letter D, since this verb already ends in an E. Our base verb, endure, ends in a voiced R sound. This means the ed ending is just going to make a D sound, and we're not going to add an extra syllable when we say it. The past tense and the participle form of the verb should sound like this: endured, endured. Okay. Now, we don't have any phrasal verbs that we need to study, so let's move on and do a little verb tense practice. Today, I thought we could review the present perfect progressive and the simple future. Let's start with the present perfect progressive. First, some teachers or textbooks or even other YouTube videos might refer to this verb tense as the present perfect continuous, and that's just fine. It means exactly the same thing. We use this particular verb tense to describe an action that started in the past, is continuing into the present, and it may even continue into the future. The focus in the present perfect progressive is really how long an action has been ongoing or how long it has been continuing. Okay? Now, the reason I like saying present perfect progressive with my students is that the 3 P's can help you remember that you'll need 3 parts to make your verb. And this is a verb tense where we need to pay attention to our subject. So if the subject is I, you, we, or they, use have, then the participle been, and then that ing form of the verb. So those are our 3 parts. Now, if your subject happens to be he, she, or it, then use has been and the ing form the verb. Let's take a look at an example. Ukrainians have been enduring a war for over 1,000 days. Oh, as I thought of these examples and that idea of continuing on in the face of something quite difficult, of course, my mind went to war. And unfortunately, there are a variety of different people of different nationalities that could talk about kind of the hardships that have been ongoing. So, but I have seen a sentence very similar to this used in some recent articles. So that's why I chose that. Now let's take a look at a negative present perfect progressive sentence. Again, we're going to pay attention to our subject. We'll use either have or has, whichever form matches that subject, then the participle been, and then the ing form of our verb. Here's another example. The plan aimed to improve economic resilience to climate change for fishing communities, but its impacts haven't been enduring. So what this sentence is describing is maybe there was a community, several groups that were coming up with different ideas of things we could do to make sure that this industry can still thrive even in the face of climate change. But these changes, maybe they worked for a year or longer, maybe a little bit longer, but they're not continuing on, right? So that's back to that second definition of kind of like lasting for a lengthy period of time. Now, let's take a look at making a yes or no question in the present perfect progressive. To do this, start with have or has, then you'll have your subject, then the participle been, and then that ing form of the verb. Here's another example. Has the region been enduring frequent flooding? Okay. Anytime you're dealing with a natural disaster, right? That's a really difficult situation, but if you're kind of progressing through it, waiting it out patiently, this is a time you might see that verb used. Now let's move on and talk about the simple future. Today we're going to make sentences with be going to. Be going to is very common as people discuss their plans. A little less common to see it with offers or promises, but you might still encounter them there. This is another verb tense where we need to pay attention to our subject. That's because the first part of our verb will use the present form of be. And we have three forms of be in the present. So if my subject is I use am, going to, and then the base verb. No special endings here, no suffixes. Now, if your subject is you, we, or they, you'll use are, A-R-E, going to, and then the base verb. And finally, if your subject is he, she, or it, use is, going to, and then that base verb. Let's look at an example. They are going to endure additional trauma if we uproot them without a plan. Unfortunately, I have heard and read sentences similar to this in the last week or so, as our government has given really confusing guidance to parolees, so individuals who are given a special status to live and work in the United States until something could be figured out related to a pathway to citizenship. And these, most recently, the individuals affected were people who supported and helped, aided the United States during the war in Afghanistan. And now it sounds like some are at risk of being forced out of the country. And as you can imagine, their journey here was not easy. And they are facing, again, more difficulty, more hardship. And so that's why this particular verb was used. Now let's take a look at a negative simple future sentence. Again, we pay attention to our subject here, and then we'll use our form of be that matches, followed by not, then going to, and the base verb. Let's look at another example. Reclaimed wood is very popular in bathrooms now, but it isn't going to endure. It will look weird and out of place in another 5 years. So this was a particular interior designer's opinion and view. And kind of, again, talking about maybe what's cool, what's going to be popular, looking into the future here. So maybe a bit of her prediction about a particular type of material being used. And she is saying, like, this isn't going to last forever. This is not going to be like the classic look that people want in their bathrooms. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, start with a form of be. Okay? We want that form to match our subject. That subject should come next, followed by going to, and then the base verb. Here's my last example. Is the population's love of eggs going to endure through this time of escalating prices? So if you live outside of the United States, maybe this isn't well known, but for nearly a year in the United States, the price of eggs has really been going up. And again, it's been a very popular breakfast staple or ingredient here in the United States. People really seem to enjoy them, but others are wondering, like, will people still enjoy them if their price continues to rise? And the prices have been going up because of a strain of avian flu or bird flu, and large flocks of producers, the birds themselves, have had to be killed to stop the spread of that disease. So, see, we cover all kinds of fun things here in these verb videos. Now, let's spend a moment and talk about some words that are related to our verb endure. The first word we're going to discuss is the noun endurance. One way this noun gets used is to refer to the fact or the power of enduring an unpleasant or difficult process or situation without giving way, right? So it's that kind of idea of continuing on. An example of this in a sentence might be, I am in awe of ultra marathoners' endurance. Okay. Now, marathon might not mean a lot to everyone, but it's a race that is slightly longer than 26 miles. Ultra marathons can be things that are over that, right? So maybe a 50-mile or a 100K race. And there are people who do this for fun. I have a friend that is a very successful ultra marathoner, and it's amazing what they're able to put themselves through, and how hard they can push themselves. So, true sentence there. A second way to use the noun endurance is to talk about the act or instance of enduring or suffering. So, an example of how you might hear that. The book tells of the family's endurance of many hardships. This could be related to many different things. Could be illness, maybe job changes, war, we don't know what period of time, maybe a famine, we don't know where, but that kind of idea that they've had many difficult events in their lives that have produced some suffering. Another related word you might encounter is enduring. Right? We talked about this word in its progressive form earlier, but it can also be an adjective. When we use this word as an adjective, we're describing something that is either lasting or durable. An example of this. Do you think this painting will have enduring appeal? Right? So we might be looking at a piece of art and kind of wondering, in 50 years, in 100 years, will people still think this is a work of art? One last word for us today. It's the adverb enduringly. So we've added that suffix ly, which is a good sign we have an adverb in English, and it's describing something being done in a lasting or permanent way. Remember, adverbs can modify other verbs or describe verbs, and can also describe other adjectives. Let's take a look at an example sentence here. If you look over at this section, you'll see our most enduringly popular paint colors. So this might, again, back to that maybe interior decorator who's kind of pointing out some direction. Here, the adjective popular is being modified by that enduringly, right? So it continues on, right? It's not like popular for a couple months and then not. It continues to be. Thanks again to Luis for suggesting today's verb, and I thank you all for watching. Have a great day.